Ciera, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be on your podcast. I really appreciate you inviting me.
It's so good to talk to you. I've loved getting to know you today and getting to know you again because we had some technical difficulties and recorded a amazing podcast episode, and then it didn't actually record. This is not the first time that's happened to me, but it's the first time that Zoom tricked me and made me think it was recording. So
yeah, it definitely tricked both of us. And you know what? Technology does that. So, okay.
But so this should be really smooth this time because we have already done a dress rehearsal.
Exactly. Yeah, we've got this now.
So I've loved getting to know you, but I want the listeners to get to know you a little bit. So would you tell us about you, your family, and how you became the pastor's wife?
Sure. So my name is Ciera Sanders. My husband is Joseph Sanders. The Lord has blessed us with 3 beautiful children. We have Naomi, who's 2 years old. She just turned 2 December 15th. And then we have 9-month-old twins. We have little Joe. He's named after Joseph, and Alice. And we're in the thick of it right now with motherhood and parenthood. But we are truly blessed to be living near grandparents and being in a community of people that know us and love us so well. And we go to First Baptist Williston, and the way I guess you could say we fell into this role is it was about 2 years ago that Joseph and I decided to lead a youth Sunday school class because there was no teacher, and we did not want our youth to go without having a Sunday school class to meet with on Sundays. So I remember Joseph telling me, though, he said, if I choose to become a youth Sunday school teacher, they are going to want me to be the youth pastor because they don't have a youth pastor yet. He, of course, then became the youth pastor. He nailed it. And then there was an interim process. And I guess through the interim process and through Joseph showing his capability of leadership, he then put his yes on the table for being lead pastor. And there was a long process of prayer, but after a while of the interim, they eventually chose Joseph to be lead pastor at First Baptist Williston.
That is awesome, because I don't think we mentioned it. This is going to happen multiple times because we've already had a conversation. Yeah. So I'm going to forget what I've said now or earlier, but you guys are on the younger side.
Yes,
for a lead pastor position.
Yes. So I'm 30 years old. My husband is 25 years old. And on paper, I'll be honest, it does not make sense for us to be in our roles. But Joseph said when it was presented to him to possibly put in his resume, he said he feel like he would have been disobedient to God if he had not put his yes on the table. And so with a lot of prayer, he sought out a lot of mentorship from very seasoned pastors and counselors. And after seeking wisdom from not only the Lord, but his mentors, he decided, I'm going to put my yes on the table and see if the Lord wants me here at First Baptist Williston, despite my age. Does he want me here leading this congregation? And I will let you know, it was not a short, quick process. Our pastor search committee, our church, Joseph and I, we all spent individual time praying, and the door was open, and it was very clear that we were to walk through it and fulfill these roles.
I love it when God opens a clear door.
Yes, exactly. Just honestly speaking, even with me being a pastor's wife, Joseph being the lead pastor, ministry was not really the path that we were going. But even the youth pastor role was a very clear open door. The pastor at the time, Dr. Stephen Burnett, he saw potential in Joseph, and I was already the worship leader at the church. And he decided to really invest in Joseph and show the church that, hey, we have someone here that is willing to serve. We should invest in this since we don't have a youth pastor. And talk about an open door. Honestly, we were trying to shut that door. We were saying we're not choosing ministry, but the Lord said, I am though. I am choosing it for you. This is where we're leading. So
Wow. So
yeah.
did you grow up in church?
I did. Yes. My parents, to this day are still very firm believers in Jesus Christ. And, throughout middle school, high school, I can remember, my parents always, sharing the gospel and taking opportunities for our family to pray together and read scripture together. And, Joseph actually was born into ministry. He, from a very young age, his family held VBS camps around South Carolina and I think even out of the state, but they just had a lot of success with holding church camps and being a presence in the churches, even here in Williston.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't mention this before when we talked, but my husband and I spent a few summers serving at VBSs all over North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
Actually,
Yeah.
with the Wesleyan church, and we are not Wesleyan, and I don't even remember how that connection happened, but I actually had never seen a church bring people in for VBS. And
Mm.
so they would bring, but you just said that, like, that's a normal thing. Apparently, it's a normal thing. I just didn't know about it in Florida.
Right.
But when we lived in Charlotte, we spent quite a few summers going around to churches, and we had just the best time. That was so much fun for us and our kids.
Yes. And Joseph can say too, he had a great time. They had an RV where everywhere they went, they would take the RV and just stay overnight for the week. And
Wait a minute, I missed out. I
yeah,
did
oh, I
not
know.
have an RV.
Yeah, that he loved going to travel with the family, and they had a Muppet show at every VBS. And
Oh, that's so fun.
if you bring up the Muppets around Williston, people know what you're talking about because so many people can recall having VBS, Muppet
Oh, how
shows
fun.
and camps. So yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. Yeah, my kids have great memories from that. And those were good times. So anyway, I'm sorry. Okay, I got off track there because of going
Yeah.
back and reliving those days.
Yes.
But you so he has background, you have that background. Now, was he thinking, yes, I'm gonna go into ministry?
He actually wasn't when we first met, which I should probably note, we met in 2020. Um, and by January 1st of 2021, we were actually married. So there was about 6 months of us meeting, getting engaged, and then getting married. So it was very quick. Um, and when we got married, he was actually working with Mutual of Omaha selling life insurance. And then he switched to being a carpenter, but he has a degree in business. He actually was not trying to pursue ministry. He was not trying to pursue carpentry. He wanted to be working in either business or human resources. And but it wasn't until I found out that I was pregnant and us just kind of needing to find some kind of foundation when it comes to a job. Now that we knew we were building a family, that we needed something that was reliable. And like I mentioned earlier, Pastor Steve, who was the pastor at the time, thank God he saw potential in Joseph and decided to invest in him in several ways. But he definitely helped us find some stability when it comes to ministry work and Joseph being able to support our family.
That that's great. I love so you are lead pastors at such a young age. So
Yeah.
you have a totally fresh perspective on this whole thing. Like my husband and I have been in ministry for 34 years,
Mm-hmm.
lead pastor for 12 years, a little bit over 12 years. So you've got this fresh perspective that I believe is needed in the pastor wife community because a lot of reasons, but just I think what you see is going to be so valuable to not just new pastors' wives that might be listening, but even to us older, seasoned pastors' wives that are listening. So what do you bring?
I feel like what I bring is just the reminder because I think even as people get seasoned, they might feel that they there's almost like this sense of worthiness that they got to do what they're doing now because they've always had that capability. But I think it's good to remember that we all have to start somewhere. And even Joseph and I, on paper, it doesn't make sense because of our age, because Joseph is still completing seminary. It doesn't make sense for us to be called, to this role and to these positions. But I'm reminded, and I think a good perspective for people to remember is that God has been in the business of equipping people, and he's not calling perfect people and calling the equipped. He actually very often uses people that don't feel equipped, and I believe that's a way for him to even be glorified that much more,
Yes.
using what doesn't seem possible and making it possible. And so, I don't have this wealth of knowledge, but I can, I guess, in a sense, just be a walking vessel and living proof that God can use anyone and any couple. And so it's nerve-wracking, because Joseph and I know that we have so much to learn, and we are remaining and praying that the Lord will keep us humble and teachable. But at the same time, we're excited because we know God, and we feel very confident that God has called us here at this time and in this place for a reason.
That's good. And I mean, I feel like you have an advantage because you are going to be so dependent on the Lord because that's what you got.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's easy to be dependent on our past experience. I'm saying from my point of view, like it's easy to get comfortable because I've been doing this forever. It's easy to rely on what worked in the past. And you've just got a straight, fresh perspective where all you have is the Lord. So I think that's a huge, huge advantage.
Oh, definitely. I will let you know, there is a slight internet connection. So I missed that last little part.
I don't know. It was probably the most brilliant thing I've ever said.
Yeah, right. And I missed it. Can you believe it?
Okay. I have no idea even where I was going, but it's fine.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, Lord, Lord's hand is
Yes.
on this technology.
I know we've prayed and prayed over this. So yes.
I'm believing it's recorded everything. So we'll see.
Yes.
So you got married, you met him, got engaged, got married, started having babies.
Yes.
And like that, first of all, getting married is a huge life change. Having
Really.
babies and having babies close together is a huge life change. And then add into that a pastoral ministry.
Right.
So, how are you juggling all of that?
It truly has been a tremendous transition. And I think the best way for us to get through this season of life is keeping one another in the loop of what we're going through individually, and also keeping our close people nearby. We live near grandparents, so occasionally when Joseph and I, when the weight of everything is a lot, we have family nearby that can, come help with the kids when we need help. My mom, Nikki, is always here on Sunday mornings to help with the chaos of what Sundays look like, with me being the worship leader, Joseph being the lead pastor. And so, just keeping I guess, the balance, or at least a smooth rhythm of life. It has been not the easiest to navigate, but um, just making sure that Joseph and I are in tune with ourselves and with one another, and staying in communication is definitely a key to making sure this whole process works. And I do have to just give credit to our congregation. Um, Even before Joseph became lead pastor, they've known us now for years. And Joseph, really, most of the people have known him all of his life. And so they're able to see what season we're in now. And they don't have these crazy expectations of us, to, maybe go above and beyond what we're capable of right now, because they all know we have our hands very full. But we still try and give our best, and have discipleship meetings and give our best on Sunday mornings, despite being so busy in our personal life.
I love that. It sounds like you have a wonderful congregation.
We do. And we are so blessed to live near family. And we even have these babysitters that are a part of our youth program. But the kids, they love our babies. And that's a blessing too, having church members that want to come in and help and just love on the babies too.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
We were youth pastors when our kids were little, and there was nothing better than having, those babies in the youth ministry, because the youth just loved them, and just
Yes,
that
they
was
do.
their whole world. I mean, they just so my kids always loved going to church because everybody loved them, and they just got passed around, and it was just so great for them. That was fun years to be in youth pastors with babies.
Oh yeah.
Not always easy, but it was, I mean, there was definitely that when they came over to our house, the kids knew them, and it was just good.
Yeah.
That was amazing. But
Yeah.
having family also.
It's such a blessing having both sets of grandparents nearby.
And you have two sets of grandparents that understand ministry life.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's really, really nice.
Yes, it has
That
been very nice.
huge blessing. Huge. I was the first 5 years of having kids, I lived away from my parents and my husband's parents. And so we didn't have any of that. And it was a lot harder. So you are mom and the pastor's wife and the worship leader at the church. So that's all you do in life, right?
It feels like it. Yeah. It feels like just being a stay-at-home mom is really all that I do. But it's a lot. The roles and I actually decided to be a part of our newspaper too. And my personality is I do not sit still well. I'm always looking for something to do, and that can be a strength, but I have found a lot of times it can be a weakness too. But I love engaging with our community, and I actually got connected with our local news editor for the newspaper. And so something else I enjoy doing is taking pictures, writing articles of fun events and stories in our county. So and it helps me stay engaged with the community too.
Absolutely.
Our family out there, it's so nice being able to stay plugged in that way. And I actually just covered of a local pastor wife, another pastor wife in the community. She sells these delicious macaron cookies, which she actually taught me that macaroons and macarons are different. Macarons are the two cookies with the thin layers.
Yes.
Macaroons are the coconut. They're almost like a coconut cookie, and I had no idea. So she taught me something new through that story. But yeah, I love being able to connect with people, and being a part of the newspaper as well as pastor wife, worship leading. It all helps me kind of stay engaged, and it helps my extroverted personality stay happy.
Right. It's an outlet for you, but it builds connection in the community.
Yes.
I told you before when we recorded, I am not good, because I am not extroverted, and community stuff just seems so hard to me. My husband's great at it. And if I can go with him and do stuff, I'm okay. But I dread it.
Right. And it can be a lot, especially with where Joseph and I are at right now with 3 kids. There are a lot of times where I have to re-energize before going to, a gathering or an event or covering a story. So I'm not always on, there are times that I have to just regroup and refocus to feel energized to go places. But yeah, I love being able to, I love being in church. I love serving in church, but something that Joseph and I both agree on is that you're not going to always bring people into church. You have to go out in the community and meet people where they're at. And so yeah, being a part of events, it's one of the great ways to reach people.
I love that. My husband is super huge on going to every football game. Like
Mhm.
he does it because it's the right pastoral thing to do because we live in a small town. So there's one high school, but he does it because he loves football. I mean,
Yeah.
he loves football.
Right.
It's not a burden to him. Me, I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But we have this past season have found that we don't sit in the stands anymore. We sit at the like where the field goal is.
Okay.
Um,
Yes.
so we sit there and there's a group of people from our church that sit there, but then there's other people as well.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, wait a minute. Okay, I can do this.
Yeah. Right.
Doesn't seem as hard and intimidating to me.
Yes.
But I don't know. The
You have
Lord just
your
gives me grace
yes.
to do this.
You have your comfortable chair that you get to
I
sit in.
do.
There
I
you go.
do.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't too bad. I mean, it was fine. And people are always shocked here when my husband gets up on stage, he'll be like, my wife is such an introvert. And they're like, you're a liar. She's
Well,
not. And I'm like,
yeah.
well, that is the grace of God that you don't believe that I am an introvert. I'm
I don't
so
even believe
thankful.
that. I know we've only met today, and it's hard to believe, truly. She's
Uh,
extroverted. Yeah.
like we had 3 services on Sunday. When I went home, I was like, I'm going to bed. I'm done
Yes.
now.
Yes. My meter is
I'm done.
yes.
But anyway, I mean, it's not that I don't like people and I'm not shy. You can tell that I'm not shy, but it's just,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to do small talk. I don't understand how to do that.
Yeah, which is crazy because you're, hosting a podcast, and I feel like that's what you're doing, all the time is getting to know in those small talk conversations. So it's very impressive that
So
you're
I'm going
doing.
to tell you a secret. I
I mean,
dread it every time. Like
you do.
I want to do it. And then
This
when
has
it's
been
the
a
day,
double
like
win.
this morning, I'm like, oh gosh, why did I do this? I don't
No,
want to do this.
yeah,
And I said to myself, Jackie, go get ready because as soon as you sit down and start talking, you're going to be fine and you're going to love it and you're going to be so energized afterwards.
right.
And so well, I mean, maybe I would have been more energized had we not had technical difficulties. But
Okay.
anyway,
Yeah.
my husband came home and I just couldn't stop talking to him and about it and everything.
Right.
So anyway, I don't know. Maybe I'm lying to myself. Maybe I'm not really an
Doing
introvert.
a great job. Yeah, you are doing a great job for being an introvert. Yeah.
I'll go home and cry. No, I'm just kidding. I
I
won't.
know.
I will not
I
go
will
home and cry.
yeah.
I actually probably won't be able to sleep tonight because I'll be thinking about this. So
Yeah.
it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So, okay, back on track. It's okay. So a lot of us live in parsonage. I say I live in a parsonage, but technically it's not really a parsonage because the church doesn't pay for it other than the fact they pay our salary and then we pay for the house we live in. But
Okay.
do you live in a parsonage? Parsonage? Oh boy.
All right. Do live in a parsonage, yes. We we actually I'm currently in the main bedroom right now. We were blessed to be able to move in here. Our previous living condition was it was it was also a blessing, but it was time to move. So it was just at the right time that we got to move here, and it's not right by the church. It's a couple miles up the road. So it is a little bit of a blessing to not be right on top of the church. And I will say though, the analogy of us being fish in a fishbowl is very real because we live in a small enough town where people know where the parsonage is at,
Mhm.
and everyone knows where we live. And but fortunately, it's it hasn't been too daunting, to have everyone know where we're at. And I feel so blessed that we get to live here, and with Joseph and myself working so much at the church, it's so nice to just be able to be a couple minutes,
Mm,
up the road when we have to go back and forth for certain things. So especially Sunday mornings, my mom comes here. I go to worship rehearsal. I come back to get the kids ready, go back for Sunday. It's for the service. It's a lot. So but yes, we love this parsonage. It's a beautiful, beautiful home.
that's
So
so nice. We've lived in a parsonage before and they remodeled it for us and it was
oh,
so nice. And then we moved like
oh,
within just a few months. I was like,
oh my goodness.
and I remember saying when they said, oh, we're going to remodel. And I was like, oh, we're probably going to move now.
Yeah,
We
right.
did.
Yeah.
But anyway, I do say I always call it the parsonage when I talk about it. but
Yeah.
it's not technically the definition of a parsonage.
Yeah.
But I'm like you. It's not too close. We're about 2 miles,
Yeah.
and everybody knows where we live.
Mhm.
Actually, they know that we live in Miss Mary Alice's house. Like that's who
Okay.
built the house. So they know we live in Miss Mary Alice's house. And I swear there are still people in this town that call my husband the new preacher.
That is so funny. Yeah. And how many years has he been preaching?
12.
Oh
12.
my goodness.
Now, I mean, we're from out of town, so that's unusual here. People
Okay.
just don't move here. Well, it
Right.
seems since COVID, tons of people feels like have moved to the area. But yeah, so he's
Funny.
probably, some people still think he's the new preacher,
Right.
but everybody knows us, whether we know them or not.
Yeah.
It creeped me out a little bit when we first moved here.
Oh yeah. It's
Because
when
I
you're
live
not.
from Orlando. Nobody knows anybody.
Oh yeah. When I moved here, I had moved from Charleston, and more people knew about me, like you're saying, than I knew about them. And they knew my name, they knew who my parents were. And you could just be at the local, grocery store, and people,
Yes.
saying hello to you by your name, and you're thinking, please tell me I have not met you before, or am I forgetting,
Yes.
And so a lot of times I just wore a smile and said, yeah, nice seeing you again, if I have seen you before. And so yeah, moving to a small town, you are definitely front and center. People know you got this, blinking red light over you, that you're new to town.
Yep.
And so when we had met, he had just finished college at USC in Columbia. And I didn't know that he was from the area. So when he moved back, the reason why we crossed paths was because he wanted to join the worship team. I had not known that he actually helped form the worship team that I was now leading before going to college.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I said, I want you to audition, because every person that wants to join the worship team, I want to know what their walk with the Lord looks like. And I have to know, can you play? Can you sing? Otherwise then we'll have a different conversation. And he auditioned, and that's how we met. And, but yeah, he had lived here his whole life. So everyone knew Joseph. I was still, I think still in some ways, I feel still like the new girl in town, but it's been 4 years, so it's just, it's funny how it still takes some time to catch on.
Yes. So is your husband still in the worship team?
He is not. Once he became lead pastor, I said, you're off the hook. You've got way too much on your plate. And because he actually, I had mentioned earlier on that he was, prior to being lead pastor, he was youth pastor. And he actually is still fulfilling youth pastor role as well as lead pastor. So we are very busy. And he is actually praying and intentionally, looking for someone to fulfill that youth pastor role, because
Yeah.
Joseph has really done a wonderful job at building this community of middle schoolers and high schoolers that actually turned into a children's ministry, which we have wonderful volunteers pouring their time and their effort into that. And Joseph just wants to be sure that when the baton is passed, that the person is theologically sound, has a genuine heart for the gospel, and just is someone that knows how to run a youth ministry.
Mm.
But yes, Joseph is not on the worship team anymore. He's got plenty of other things to focus on now. So
I'm pretty sure somebody that I've had on the podcast before, she was the worship leader and her husband drummed, I think. And I was like, how weird is that? That like in one way you are his leader, and then he's your leader. He turns around, gets off the drums, and now he's your leader.
yeah,
Just an interesting dynamic.
yes,
But you guys work well together.
we do. We actually we were working together in the church. Of course, we currently are, with worship leading and him being lead pastor. But prior to him being lead pastor, I had been the secretary at the church. This was when we had just gotten married, and people even asked, how do you guys make it work? Like, I could not imagine working with my husband. And Joseph and I, fortunately, are just different enough and just similar enough to where we work together really well as a team. And our differences help balance one another. Where I'm good at, he's maybe not the best at, and vice versa.
That's great.
We have really helped fill in each other's gaps well.
I love that because I mean, it's important for, first of all, the worship pastor or the worship leader and the lead pastor to work together well. I mean, no matter whether they're related or not.
Right.
But and just as a pastor wife and pastor, how important that is to
Yes,
to work together.
definitely. I when I first became the worship leader, and this was even prior to meeting Joseph, I had convinced myself that because I'm a worship leader, there's no more dating. I can't mess this up. I am now a worship leader and the Lord is using me. And I realized after meeting Joseph that that was just a fear-based thought that I had made up in my mind because
Mhm.
I wanted to be a really good worship leader. But I was reminded that, when it comes to dating and pursuing that husband or that wife that you want to live your life with and the rest of your future with, you want to find someone where you both have similar goals. Of course, where you both are pursuing Christ, but if you guys have this vision and you have goals, they might not look exactly the same, but if you find that you are running along the same path with someone and they're right next to you, then that's a good sign that it's okay, that could be your future spouse.
Mhm.
And Joseph and I, we were exactly that. We were two individuals that were not looking to date, but the Lord placed us in the same place. We were both running the same race, pursuing the Lord, and I just truly am thankful that the Lord is still using us in ministry and working together. And but I feel like I'm saying this like as if there's no bad days. Trust me, there are rough patches, and but truly it's by the grace of God that we are able to get through those rough days. It's only by us having a relationship with Christ individually that we're able to come back together and say, okay, sorry, it because we fail each other all the time.
There's a lot of ministry, I mean, pressure out there.
Yeah.
And it can really have an impact on marriages,
Oh yeah.
especially with the lead pastor position. And so how do you navigate that?
Having people that are much wiser than us in our corner helps. Our previous pastor, Pastor Steve and his wife, Miss Annette, they are such a wonderful couple. And what makes them great to have in our corner is that they've been in our place. Not only have they been married and they have that experience, but they've been pastor and pastor's wife. So they understand that being in this role, it can feel very isolating because we're just as human as the people in our congregation and we have marital struggles, but it's isolating because where do we go to when we have
Mm-hmm.
those problems? You have people in the congregation that they can come to us or they can go to one another, but Joseph and I have to stay intact, but we also need help from time to time. We need some
Mm-hmm.
another couple to bounce things off of and to find wisdom. So um, people like Pastor Steve and Miss Annette and even our parents who, thank God, have relationships with the Lord too. You have to keep people wiser than you and also that understand what you're going through nearby um, and that are safe places
Mm.
because it's definitely a trying time when you're so in the spotlight, but also in one of the most intense seasons of your life, being a young family, young children, and just all of that. And you're in the spotlight the whole time. You're in your fishbowl,
Yes.
everyone sees you. So it's yeah, it can be heavy. but I'm so thankful for people that are in it with us and helping us through that time.
Yep. You guys, I mean, you've had a lot of life change. So
Yeah.
you mentioned Pastor Steve.
Mhm.
That's the former pastor of the church.
Yes, he's the one that retired and that Joseph
And
has.
you guys, is he still connected to the church?
He's not, I mean, he is in a sense where he left on really great terms. I mean, I think if Pastor Steve were to say he's coming back, people would kick Joseph out the door and say, welcome back. Pastor Steve has and is still very much so embraced, but he's no longer, I think technically he's a member, but he and his wife are checking out other churches near where they live now, which is
Mhm.
not far from here. Um, but we just stay in contact because we love
I
them.
love that. I mean, you probably realize this, but that's a big deal.
It
That
is. Yes.
I don't know that that's normal.
Right. I don't know if it is either. And that's just the unique situation we find ourselves in. And even with Joseph being lead pastor at First Baptist, it was kind of an interesting interview process because um, Joseph put in his resume just like any other of the candidates, and we had to go through the interview process. But we're being interviewed by people that have seen us serve for, you know, 3+ years, and it was kind of funny, you know, pretending like we are strangers and presenting ourselves to them as if we never knew them,
Oh,
So it
right.
was, it was kind of funny. But I'm glad it went that route. Joseph and I wanted it to be that way. And actually Joseph mentioned to our pastor search committee, don't choose me because you know me, but because you truly believe I'm the best candidate, because we didn't want that advantage to get us the role. We wanted truly to be chosen based on the pastor search committee going through all of the candidates,
Mm.
making sure we were the ones to fulfill that role.
I think that speaks a lot to who you guys are because the church did know you. So
Yes.
they've watched you and they still wanted you to be their pastor. So
Yeah.
I mean, as somebody who doesn't know you, that tells me a lot about you guys.
And there were great candidates from, I don't know specifically who they were, but I just know from hearing, the pastor search committee share about some of the candidates that came across the board. I mean, we are very humbled that it was us, because truly there are people that are better than us that can lead this congregation, I'm sure, better than we can. But we're so excited to be able to pour into the church that we've been loving on and have been serving at for years now.
Mm.
So it's a blessing to be able to just blossom where we're planted and dig our roots in.
I think that's beautiful. I
Thank
love this. And your husband had kind of the DNA of the church in him because he'd
Yes.
been there. And I think that's really important as somebody who came in as a complete transplant from
Yeah.
never been a part of a small town, small church.
Right.
We didn't have the DNA of this church. So, which could be good or bad. I think it actually was probably a good in this case here, but you guys have the DNA of this beautiful church and this
Yeah.
beautiful congregation already in you. And so
Yeah.
you have the ability to dig in and roots and
Right.
flourish there.
Exactly. Yes. And it's been a blessing too. And it truly is becoming, it already felt like family, but now it truly feels like our church family is our family.
Mm.
So it's a blessing.
So a lot of pastors start out their first church, they know they're like, they're just going to be there a few years and then they're moving on to something else. What is your perspective?
Well, for us, with it being our very first pastoral ministry role that we have, I feel like we are investing long term. And the reason why is because we lived during the interim process and early on in our marriage, we lived constantly wondering, well, what's next? What's next? And that left us very unsettled, never really feeling like we can truly invest in where we're at. But now that he has this lead pastor role, we feel confident that we can just remain calm for a while and focus on building a strong foundation here at First Baptist Williston. And um, if the Lord, or even if the congregation chooses otherwise, then we'll reroute. But where we're at right now is we don't see an end in sight very soon. And we also have a beautiful scenario where, since we do live near family, there's nothing pulling us out of this area
Right.
either. We want our children to be with their grandparents and cousins and be near family.
Yes, that's huge.
Yes,
That's a
it
huge
is.
blessing right there.
It really is.
I didn't ask you about what's your husband's personality like compared, like you're an extrovert. What is he?
He actually makes me feel like an introvert with how extroverted. So Joseph, and it's funny though, he is extroverted, but I can tell when he's ready to regroup at home, when his meter is low. But Joseph is the type, he loves, you were talking about not liking small talk earlier. He loves asking people random questions, people that he doesn't know. We can't go through a drive-through without him asking, the person, what's your favorite color? Do you have a favorite season? He's very engaging, and he's done a tremendous job at engaging with the students here, because we don't have a very big town. We also have one high school, one middle school, and he has just done a great job at engaging with the students and building that trust within the community and the staff at the schools too. Um, so yeah, I think I'm extroverted until I'm around him, and then I think I am not that extroverted. So
Can he write me just a PDF of some conversation starters?
yes, yeah, they might be out there, but yes, he can. Yeah,
That's
he
what
does
I
a great
need.
job.
That's like the hardest thing for me.
Yeah. Oh, it's
So
funny.
I believe, I know you believe this too. It's so important to encourage our husbands.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times I am terrible. My husband actually had a conversation with me about this because I was not good at this. He's like, you never ever say that, oh, that was a great message. You preached great today. Well, first of all, I'm not a words of affirmation person, not my love language at all.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even occur to me to say those things for that reason. But I'm like, but you are amazing. So do you not know this? Like, why would I need to tell you? Like, obviously, duh, of course it was a
Right.
great message. It's always a great message.
Right.
But I remember some years ago him saying, like, you never say, and I'm like, but I do believe that. So that changed me. And like, he is a words of affirmation person
Yeah.
for sure. That's one of his top love languages. So I have had to be really like retrain myself to make sure I tell him, because I actually do think I'd rather listen to him preach than anybody.
Right.
And so I need to tell him that sometimes. So anyway, all of that to say, so what are some of the ways that you like his love language, and then how do you encourage him?
Right. So his love language is definitely quality time. And it's funny, before a Sunday, what he normally does is he prepares a sermon, he prints it out, and he loves when I can look over his sermon and read it and sit with him and make sure everything flows and makes sense. And so that, because I know his love language is quality time, I try and truly be intentional as I'm reading the sermon, pointing out notes and highlights that I like about the sermon, maybe even things that I would change. And so doing stuff like that, like giving him my attention and my time to do that, is very encouraging for him. And I will say too, though, my love language is acts of service. So a lot of times of I speak by doing things. Like, that's my way of encouraging, is
Mm-hmm.
doing. So a lot of times I help with the social media pages. So um, I'll fill in areas that I can see, that need to be filled. If we have an upcoming event and he hasn't made a graphic yet, I'll make that for him and just go ahead and have it posted, or um, just looking at trying to be a step ahead for him helps in doing things. But yes, he's 100% quality time, and it's so hard for me to sit still. So I'm not always great at meeting his love language, but I do try my best to just sit with him sometimes and hear his thoughts.
It's so funny. God puts people together who have two totally different love languages almost every time.
Oh yeah. And I love him. He is definitely not an acts of service though. But it's okay because we can help meet in the middle, and it makes us both dig a little deep when I have to, watch the same episode of The Office with him, or that we've watched so many times, or if he has to empty the dishwasher, there's some things that we just do for one another because we know
Mhm.
that's what the other one wants or needs. So,
How do you keep your marriage a priority over ministry?
um, gosh, and over 3 children, 2 and
Yes.
under, we get about an hour each night, where it's just quiet time. Oh man, that's a good question because it's just such a heavy season right now. We of course try and prioritize dates. So any chance we get, we try and make sure we go out to dinner, or we actually had the honor of singing at a funeral recently, and my mom was watching the kids, and instead of going right home, Joseph said, "Hey, let's go grab some pizza at a local restaurant." So, of course, I sent my mom a text. I said, "I know we're going to be home, but can we go grab pizza?" So, we're just trying to feed into the quality time of our marriage anywhere we can. So,
Mhm.
um, it can be. It doesn't always feel like a priority though because of how busy we are, but we try and do our best to make that happen. Coffee in the morning too helps. We always have coffee in the morning together.
Oh, that's sweet. My husband
Yeah.
would love that if
Yeah.
we, but he gets up and leaves super, super early, like 5:30 in the morning.
Oh,
And
that
there's
doesn't
no conversating with me. I might be up, but there's no conversation happening.
right.
I'm
Yeah.
just sitting there with my Diet Coke and trying to remember what in the world my name is and everything else. But
You don't like
that's
coffee?
I do like it, but I want Diet Coke first thing in the morning. Oh man.
Really? Oh, that's funny.
Also,
Yeah.
apparently last thing at night, which this is going to
Yeah.
keep me up. So
Right.
for anybody that's listening, I just showed my gigantic Route 44 Sonic Diet
Yeah.
Coke that's going to keep me up all night because we're recording this at 6
Yeah.
o'clock at night. So anyway,
Oh, that
ah,
is.
what do you guys talk about when you're on your dates?
Oh, well, we try not to, as much as we love our church, we try not to focus on, what we're always focusing on, which is church and kids. A lot of times we actually have brought our little mini Uno to restaurants, and we'll just play Uno.
Well,
I know it sounds,
wait. There's a mini
yeah,
Uno,
there's a
like
mini Uno,
it's
and the
like
cards are tiny. Yes, like probably an inch. Yeah, they're so cute.
okay.
You should
I'm gonna have to get these.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
sure
Anyway, I'm
Amazon.
sorry. I that just lit me up right there. Okay.
They're so fun. But we'll play games, or we'll even just ask, maybe random questions or talk about goals that we have. Joseph and we actually both really are into health and fitness. And looking at us now, I will say you would not probably think that. But but we are trying to get back into that, and because we truly believe, especially with us in this new role, we have to stay on top of our health and fitness, because if our physical state is good, it's going to help our spiritual and our mental. It just, we're one whole unit, and so when we're on dates, I mean, a lot of times we'll even try and not just go eat out. We'll try and do something outside, or we have beautiful state parks nearby. And so just to kind of change it up. So but yeah, sometimes sometimes it's just a quiet dinner too, because we're always we're talking, and dealing with the kids, and sometimes it's nice just to sit with one another.
That's good.
Yeah.
My husband and I talk ministry constantly, and I don't know, we know how to do, like, it's like we do talk about, we both of him and I have lost a lot of weight this year, and
Oh,
we have been we walk together a lot now. Not as much now because it's freezing, but before the weather got so cold, we've been walking a lot. So that's been really good because we sit there and talk about how impressed we are with ourselves
yeah. Do you have
with our walking.
do you have a secret to how y'all did it?
Well, him and I have totally different reasons, but we started at the same time.
Okay.
I just started doing Weight Watchers. Now I've done Weight Watchers before and it works. I didn't work it, but this time I don't know what happened. It's just all clicked. And so I'm not finished losing weight, but I've lost 45 pounds this
Good. That's
year and
awesome.
he's lost 60, but I didn't realize this at the beginning. He felt convicted by the Lord about how he was treating his body, and
Yeah.
it was straight, and how he was overeating, and that it was just a sin.
Well,
And I
there you
was
go.
like, well, you have such a spiritual reason. Mine is just I hated the way I looked and I was
Right.
fat. So
Yes. Yeah. You just wanted to lose weight.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, you're so much more holy than I am. But
Right.
anyway, he's just been eating right, and he's way more dedicated to exercise than I am.
Okay. Yeah.
He goes to the gym, like he's gonna go to the gym when I get home, and it's, to me, I'm like, it's too late to be doing any of that mess. But he'll
Yeah.
go
Oh, I
he'll
know.
go at 9 o'clock at night if that's what he has to
Oh,
do, because
no,
he
I'm
is
a morning
super committed.
workout. Yeah.
I this week I've been going at like 10 o'clock in the morning because that works for me. I'm awake and I can move.
Yes. Right.
So anyway, that's what's happened. So
Yeah.
we do talk about that a lot, but it's always, it just keeps going back to ministry. It's like
Yes. Right.
this whole discipleship thing that we've been working on, this, I don't like to call it a program, but I don't know what else to call it, but that we talk about that all the time. We just get all excited, and it's just
Yeah.
anyway, and I'm grateful. We both love to talk about ministry, and the grandkids take up a lot of our conversation too.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
So anyway, this has been absolutely amazing. The second time has been even better than our first conversation. So
Yes.
praise
It's
the
been
Lord.
great. Yes.
I have absolutely loved chatting with you. Is there any other comments, anything else you want to say to pastors' wives?
Um, I just hope that anything that I said could be an encouragement to, honestly, a seasoned pastor's wife, a new pastor's wife, and I would say just for women that are fulfilling these roles to lean into your true story, to your authentic, route that it took to get you where you're at now. Because my story did not I did not pursue this role, but it's beautiful how the Lord, despite the many, many ways that I have failed, still brought me to this place.
Mm,
And I am so undeserving of this, but thank God it's not by us. It's through Jesus Christ that we have any kind of worth and any kind of hope for God's and for to be a part of his glory.
mm,
So
that was a
it's
good word right there.
well, thank you. And it's funny, I didn't feel like that came from me. I feel like the Lord is really working on me allowing myself to be genuine and not be afraid of what people might think of my story or why I am where I'm at. But like I mentioned earlier, I think the Lord has this wonderful way of using people that don't feel worthy, that don't feel equipped, in God saying, all right, well, now watch me work because I'm about to do a mighty work in you and through you. So
Mm,
yes,
so good.
yeah. So I'm excited. I'm very excited to see where the Lord has us going.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's gonna be good. It's gonna be wild.
Oh, yeah.
It always is.
Yes, but I like the thought of growing and learning and sharpening, I don't want to stay still. I want to go forward. I want to grow. And I will tell you, it's only been a few months of us being in these roles, but it will absolutely be a lot of sharpening, a lot of growing, and I'm excited for that.
I'm excited to see what God does in your church as you guys grow in the ministry. And you're doing, from everything that I can tell, y'all are doing an amazing job, and your hearts are humble and totally focused on bringing God glory in all you do. So there's no
Absolutely.
better combination than that.
Yes.
I mean,
Right.
so if people want to connect with you, how can they do that?
They can connect through my personal pages. So on Facebook, it's Ciera Sanders, Ciera Sanders. Instagram is at CC_Sanders. Of course, I would love if they want to get connected with our church, even if they live nearby or don't live nearby. That's at FBC Williston. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at FBC Williston.
Okay, I'll put all of those in the show notes so people can connect with you, because
Wonderful.
that's what I love when that happens, when there's a connection made, especially when
Yes,
somebody local gets to meet.
absolutely.
I feel like a matchmaker, and I feel like I have just, it's just amazing to me because it's
Yeah,
happened a few times, and that's so
that's
exciting. But anyway,
great.
I'd love for you to pray before we go.
Absolutely. Yes, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I just thank you so much for, I thank you for Jackie for having this podcast, for having the opportunity for us to just share one another's stories with each other, and to be able to hear the many stories of the other pastors' wives. And God, I just pray, Lord, that you would keep us teachable, keep us humble, but Lord, keep us united as pastors' wives here, not only on this podcast, but the women that are serving all around the world, Lord, as pastors' wives. I pray that we can remain just full of grace and truth and humility as we approach our ministry, Lord, within our home and within the church. And God, I also pray for this Christmas season, and for this new year, God. And I just pray for this fresh perspective to be encouraging to a pastor wife that is listening, Lord. We love you. We give you all the honor and all the glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Ciera, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. This has been awesome. Thank you for
Yeah.
coming on twice.
Oh, it was great. Both times. Yes.
Thank you so
Wonderful.
much.
Thank you.